Hey guys, Susan Thomas back again, and today I want to teach you some basic jewelry making techniques that will take you from novice to noticed. Okay, so I know since you're watching this video, you're interested in making jewelry, but you're probably overwhelmed by all the different techniques that are out there. I know. How many different ways are there to make a necklace anyway, right? So I'm going to teach you a few basic techniques that will make it easy for you to get started. Okay, so let's start with stringing. In order to do just basic stringing, you're going to need a few things. You're going to need some stringing wire, you're going to need a crimping plier, and you're going to need some crimp beads, and of course, a clasp, and a little jump ring to go with the clasp. And then I always like to use something called a bead stopper to stop the beads from falling off the end of my stringing wire. You can see I've got one right down there at the bottom of the wire I've strung. And a bead board, which has all these awesome measurements on it. This starts at 0 and goes all the way up and around to 17 on both sides. And it also has millimeters or centimeters on the inside, so you can use metrics if you want to. But I have laid out my beads here on my bead board at about 7 inches, because it takes about 7 inches to make a standard size bracelet, because you're gonna have 7 inches of beads and then your clasp is gonna add about 3/4 of an inch to an inch. It'll be just an average size beaded bracelet that will fit most people. Now you can also see that I have some slack here. I usually cut about 1 foot of wire off of the spool for every bracelet project. So this is a 30-foot spool, so you can get about 30 bracelets out of a spool like that. And then once I get those all strung, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a crimp bead and I am going to attach my clasp to my bracelet. So I have a crimp bead here and I'm just going to string it onto the wire, just like so. So you see that goes on there. And then I'm going to take 1/2 of my clasp. I'm going to use the jump ring first and put that on. And then I'm going to string the wire back through that crimp bead. Yes, I'm going to do it. There we go. Okay, so you make a little loop and that holds the jump ring at the end, and you pull the crimp bead up to the jump ring. You don't want to pull it too tight. You want to leave a little bit of space for that jump ring to move. And then you're going to take a crimping plier. So you're just going to drop your crimp bead down into the plier and give one squeeze and you're done. Super secure. Then you're going to take a nipper and you're going to clip off that excess wire right there, up nice and close. Let all your beads come down the wire, and I'm going to take that bead stopper off the other end because I don't need it anymore. And I'm going to put a crimp bead on the other side of the wire. Take the other half of my clasp on the wire and back through the crimp bead. Easy, right? That's so easy. This is one of the best ways to get started making jewelry. And then you're just going to pull that up to the beads so that you don't have any slack in that wire. Then same thing as the other side, we're going to drop this down into that groove in the crimping plier and give it a squeeze one time, and that's it. And we're going to trim off the extra wire right up against that crimp bead. And then you have a bracelet. Now, if you really want to, and you don't like the look of crimp beads, you can use something called a crimp cover to cover up the crimp bead. And this is just a little open bead that when you put it over the crimp bead, it's going to turn into a little ball. So I'm just going to put that over the crimp bead. So we're just going to grab that guy. And I like to have the opening facing up so it's a little bit easier for me to grab a hold of the bead and squeeze it closed so that it looks like a little round bead. It's a really nice way to end your jewelry. Very pretty. And then you are done with your bracelet. So that's a great technique, and that's one I recommend to get started. And then another wonderful technique that you can try is working with wire. And I love to work with wire because you can make bracelets and necklaces, but you can also make earrings, and that's what a lot of people do when they first start working with wire. So in order to work with the wire, I'm going to use just some 24 gauge wire. You can use any gauge to do this, it just depends on your beads, but 24 gauge is a nice medium size wire and a great size for beginners to get started with. So I'm also going to use a round nose plier and a chain nose plier and my flush cutter. So I already have 2 beads wired together here, and I'm going to wire another one together using the same technique so you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to take about a 3-inch piece of wire and my round nose plier. I'm going to grab the wire with the round nose plier, just about a 1/4 inch up the plier, and I'm going to bend that back into a 90-degree angle. And then I'm gonna roll this back towards myself into a half circle, and then wrap it the rest of the way around the plier into a full circle. Then I'm gonna re-grasp that loop and wrap the rest of this wire around underneath. And I usually do 3 times. And then you just trim off the extra wire with your flush cutter. And now I'm gonna pop a bead on here, because what I'm doing is I'm making a little beaded connector. So then you're gonna do the same thing on the opposite side of the bead. But you wanna make sure that when you get started, the plier touches the top of that bead. And then you're gonna bend it back into a 90-degree angle, hold and control your bead, roll this back towards yourself, pull it down and around into a full circle. Now the trick here is to make sure that you connect this to any other closed connectors that you have started. So I have 2 right here that I've already started, and I am going to run this up into that loop to connect them. Then I'm going to use my round nose plier and re-grasp that same loop, use gravity to get those beads out of the way, and wrap and trim off the extra wire. Then I'm going to take my little chain nose plier here and just squish down that little end that I made. So now I have this cute little segment of wire, or of chain, and I want to attach that little briolette to the bottom. So I'm going to take some more 24 gauge wire, a little bit longer this time, 6 inches, and I am going to throw that down onto the mat and pick it back up again. Hold on, there we go. I'm going to put that at the center of this piece of wire, and then I'm going to squeeze it together with my nails, and see how I kind of made almost like a little teepee at the top, or like a little triangle to bring them together. And then I'm going to use the round nose plier to hold right above the top of that bead, and I'm going to take one of these wires and I'm going to wrap it 2 times around there to finish that off. And I'm going to trim this off. And then it's almost like a head pin. So I'm going to grab that, bend it back into a 90-degree angle. So it's basically the same technique that we started with. Roll back towards yourself into that half circle. Bring this down and around into a full circle. Then I'm going to connect it. I'm going to connect it to the orange one because I like the way the green and the orange look together. And into the loop it goes. Re-grasp the circle, use gravity to get that out of the way, and then wrap. And then I'm just going to squeeze off, or trim off the extra wire, and there it is. Like a cute little earring, right? Or it could be a dangle on the end of a necklace, or it could be like an extender chain, anything. So that's some of the great things that you can do with wire. Okay, now, I know you guys are here to learn lots of cool techniques, so that's 2 down. Let's see what else we can get into. I think I would like to try some hand knotting next. So voila, a little French for you. We have got here silk cord, pearls, a toggle clasp, and then this is called an easy knotter right here. This is a wonderful tool for a beginner who's learning how to hand knot jewelry. It is awesome. It's the easiest one that I've ever worked with, and I love working with it. So you see this little knob right here. This is actually just a safety. You take that off and it reveals this little pin in the middle. And that is kind of the magic pin that's going to help us knot our jewelry. So what you do first is you just string all your beads onto your cord. And I'm using a silk cord that it comes carded like this. And what I love about this silk cord is it already has a needle attached to the end. That's just awesome. So that is already attached to the end. You do not have to worry about threading a needle or anything like that. It's on every one of these little cards of silk. And I'm using kind of a medium-sized silk. It's called a size 6, which is 0.7 millimeters. And really, I love that size because it fits through most medium-sized pearls, and it gives you a nice sized knot between each one of the pearls. So I've already got those 3, and I'm going to pull another pearl down next to the first 3 that I got started. And then I'm going to wrap this around my fingers, kind of like a teepee, and drop the pearls down through the center and put that little loop I made, let me hold that up for you, right over the top of that pin in the middle. And then you're just going to pull the cord until that knot becomes tight around the pin. And then you're going to pull that back up off, and we're going to take our next pearl and string it right up. Push against the first pearl and pull that knot tight. So see how perfect that is? Now, the other great thing about this tool is you see all of the inches and millimeters here, is that you can do tin cup style necklaces, which is so cool. So a tin cup style necklace is a necklace where there's space between the knots and the pearls. So you see this necklace right here is started with no space. And what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna tie another knot so that I have some space between my next two pearls. So in order to do that, you're just gonna, same thing, make your teepee and drop your pearls through and put the knot onto the pin, but I'm gonna pull it tight, and then I'm gonna pull this until my first knot is at the measurement that I want. So I really want there to be about a 1/2 inch between each knot. So you see how I've got this knot here and the second knot right there on top of that 1/2 inch. And then you're gonna take your 2 fingers and pinch and pull. And there, you've got that space. And pull the next bead down. See how that works? And so then this next knot has to be right on top of the pearl. Oops. So I'll make this one close. And this knot is on my pin. I'm gonna pull this up and pull tight. Isn't that cute? Makes a great necklace. All right, so that is essentially how you hand knot. And always put this knot back on top of this tool. Otherwise you'll lose it. And I always work on the floor and then I'd step on it and I would hate that. And then I have one more technique I want to show you in our basic technique series, and that is working with stretch cord. Now you might think, stretch cord, that's easy. Well, there's some ins and outs to that you probably want to know about working with stretch cord. I've got 3 different spools of stretch cord here. And I love this because I've got 3 different colors here. I've got black, clear, and silver. And I also have 3 different sizes, so that's something you might not have ever thought about. But the 1 millimeter, of course, is gonna be the biggest, and then the 0.8 millimeter is gonna be kind of your medium size, and then the 0.5 millimeter is gonna be your small. So you wanna have all 3 diameters because depending on the size of your beads, that's how you choose which one of the sizes you use to string on. You want the cord to fill up as much of the hole in the bead as possible. So for this particular project, I'm using the 0.8. So one thing that you'll notice is that I have a spacer on one end and not on that end, on the first end, because when you bring it together, that's gonna just be that spacer in the center. One of the things I always used to do when I would make stretch bracelets is I would forget and I would put a spacer on both ends, and then you have 1 spacer between every bead except the last 2, and then you have 2. So remember that. Then you're just gonna take that little bead stopper off. Remember that guy, he's very handy. Let me stack these up and put him to the side so you can see what I'm doing. And you are going to tie your stretch cord. Now, what you wanna do is you wanna cross the stretch cord 1 time, and then you want to take it and knot it. And when you knot it, you wanna knot it in a square knot. So right over left, left over right, and then you wanna take it 1 more time through, making what's called a surgeon's knot. And you can see that little braid on there right there. If you've got that braid, you have it knotted correctly. And now you need to pull that tight. Now Alicia, my friend Alicia taught me this trick. You really, really, really need to pull it tight. You need to pull it tight from the top, and you need to pull it tight from the bottom. And then the last thing I always do is I take some of this Hypo Cement. I always do this. And it has this tiny little applicator on here, and you just drop a little bit of it onto your knot. And you can pull it tight again if you want to. The only thing I don't like about this is it's really hard to get this tip back into the glue, but it's great glue, and I always use it. I also use it for hand knotting as well on some of my knots there, so good stuff. All right, and then what you do is you just trim off the extra cord, and voila, you have a stretch bracelet. Okay, so there you go. That's 4 basic techniques you can use to get the ball rolling. Stringing, wiring, hand knotting, and stretch cord. So, time to get to work, and don't forget to send me some pictures of what you've done. Thanks so much for watching, guys. If you'd like to pick up any of the supplies we used today, check out the links down below. Are there any questions that you have about jewelry making techniques that you'd like to know about? Leave me a comment. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you again next time.